Will I mess you up if I leave the meeting and then hit the link on this?
No, as long as
Okay.
I'm still in.
Perfect.
Oh, hello. I'm in a room all by myself live streaming. Play around with this. Or that. Why the slide didn't show up? Okay. Not hearing any sound come out of it. Not able to hear you. Oh, there. Working on it.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Okay. Now I can.
Great. Okay.
As you situate, I need to get me one of those screens. I would like to have a green screen actually, like you have. Like,
Oh yeah.
is that a curtain behind you?
Yeah, it's a backdrop, one of my backdrops that I use for when I'm taping people or myself or whatever. I have a bright green one, too. I have two of them. I tried like when I was in a Zoom meeting, putting it and like pulling it out, using it as a green screen, but it didn't work. I think my computer's just too ancient.
This is all I have right now. The virtual backgrounds, but that shows my technical abilities and skills.
And then it like does that weird cutout for, you know what I mean? Everybody looks like they're being superimposed. I'm like, oh, it's more distracting, right?
I mean, I mean that's fine. It works. I'm waiting on my selfie light to come in so I can help light
Oh,
my
yeah.
face better. So
Uh-huh.
all
I ordered
this
one of those
will
too.
be better.
Just like for when I'm doing stuff like this, or I like to sing too, and sometimes I'll film it on this app or whatever. And I'm always like trying to get the right angle with the right lighting. So I ordered one and didn't realize I'd ordered from China, and they were like, "Oh, we'll have it to you by the end of May." 3 weeks ago.
Delays all out of China.
Oh, yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I probably wouldn't have ordered it if I'd looked that closely.
So what was the app?
Smule, actually. It's really cool. Have you heard of it?
Smule, I have heard of that. I saw a lot of people, you can like sing and dance and karaoke kind of thing.
They have like karaoke tracks, so like, and then you can record it, and you can I mean, it's not like super technical. It's definitely novice, but you can change, you can make, give it different sounds and stuff like that, depending on what song it is, and different effects on your face. It kind of reminds me a little bit of those booths that they used to have like on boardwalks when I was younger, where you'd like go into the room and you'd sing, and then they'd superimpose you in some weird video.
They still exist. Like sometimes in the I heard of in the malls, the photo booths, and where it's a big thing now at weddings and everything to do these photo booth sessions. To bring
to have props and stuff.
And it gets me thinking. I'm a video editor, so big app. Instagram is cool for me, but TikTok, I'm learning how to be a little creative and try and get my Toastmasters club on there. Think of some.
By the time you figure something out, though, it's like there's another one.
Yeah. So what have you been doing in time, staying busy, keeping busy?
It's been interesting because everything is. It took some adjusting. Although I kind of thought, well, initially I thought this, and then I didn't, but now I do again. That it might end up being that we tape a lot more auditions than we even were doing. So, because that's one of the things I've been kind of checking in on different, message boards and talking with some different people, and kind of just trying to pay attention to what everybody's plan is post, quarantine and whatnot, and what the, their thought process was on how things were going to move forward. So I've been kind of just trying to do that to keep an idea of maybe where it's headed and what can I do to, be ready or get ahead of the curve or anything like that. So that, Netflix. And and I kind of used it as a chance to work on some of my own stuff too, but yeah, for the most part I was just kind of trying to figure out what how to be ready for when things started back up, because it went dead. It was like, I think I had one person I put on tape like the week before everything shut down, and then I just finally started taping people again last week. So,
and you said you can use this time to do stuff for yourself. Like, what does that mean? Like shoot taping yourself for like,
yeah, I had I brushed off a few of my own monologues and kind of got them going. I switched agencies, or I got signed on with a new agency like right before as well. It was interesting. I had a lot of things that I was like doing right before everything happened, and so, but it was kind of nice because I felt like it gave me the space to breathe and make sure I was getting everything the way it needed to be. But so I got on, when you're an actor and you're with an agency, you have to, put all your stuff on all these sites, and you have to like enter everything. Like you can't just upload your resume. You have to like, type it all in or whatever. So, anyways, I was just making sure those were updated. My website was updated, all of that stuff. There is this really cool thing called Covoco, I believe, Covoco. Yeah. It's a voiceover audition app. So you can go on there, and different people will list like projects that they're working on, and they're looking for, you know, actors to do voiceovers. And a lot of voiceovers you can do in your own home anyway. I took a voiceover workshop with a great coach and talent here in Houston a number of years ago. And I remember at the time he was, you know, kind of teaching us how to set up our own studio. But even that's a while ago now. I feel like it's even easier, you know, because everybody's, you know, on all of these different platforms now. So as long as you have kind of a decent microphone. So I did a little bit of that, you know, I got on there and was, you know, you can kind of, you go on there and you record it, and you can record it a bunch of times until you're happy with it. And then you submit the audition that way. So that was a way to keep acting and trying to audition without letting, you know, the fact that I couldn't be in person anywhere, you know, keep me completely stagnant. So that, and then some people were accepting just kind of general self-tapes for stuff, you know, so I, you know, brushed off my monologues, I taped them, I sent them in. So, but I felt like it was really worth it. I know some people kind of were bristling, I think, a little bit, just, you know, about whether or not they felt like people were really watching the tapes and paying attention. But, you know, the one in particular that I sent in, I got, you know, a response the very next day from the artistic director, and, you know, they were very kind. And so it was kind of nice to get that sort of response in a way that you even might not normally get, like just, you know, on a normal day, you know, a normal time period during the year when people are, you know, super, super busy. So that was really great too. I guess in some ways I felt like it was validating to do those things, even if at first maybe it was kind of felt scary, you know, that everything, you know, because it really did. I mean, it affects everything, right? But it's certainly affected the entertainment industry in a lot of ways too. So,
is there like a specific day that you can pinpoint, like when? So I know I have actually a specific day, like a day and time, like 9/11, where everything just stopped, and it's like, whoa, what's happening? So is there? Can you pinpoint a day, or is it just all merged together?
When I decided that like this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah, as far as, well, not getting that roof, just as far as this last few months, like a specific day of when this all stopped for you, like as far as the entertainment industry,
Sure.
what we knew.
Well, it was about my birthday, actually. Like the week of my birthday was sort of when everything stopped. So it was kind of, yeah, it was hard not to feel that, I think, too. My birthday was March 19th. So I guess it was kind of like the week before. But I was the week before, I was supposed to go to a concert, my favorite band. And places had already been shutting down. And I, you know, was being stubborn and I wanted to go. So I was still planning on going. And then at 2:00 that day, and I had a feeling they were going to do it. And I was hoping they were going to do it because really, I just think that, you know, people are not always going to make the right choice, right? They're going to do what they want to do. So kind of was grateful that they made the choice, you know, for the fans. But yeah, so it was at 2:00 that day, they canceled or rescheduled the concert. So I, you know, didn't get to go. But so for me, like that really pinpointed the day when it was like, oh, wow, you know, they just kind of shut this down day of, like, that's, you know, that's a big deal, you know? So I would say probably that was the day where I realized like, oh, okay, this is serious. And my friend's a doctor. Yeah. So I called her and I was like, I really want to go to this concert, and, you know, what do you think? And she was like, yeah, I don't think you should go. You know?
Yeah.
You know, all right.
For me, like when I'm in the sports area, so sports was like the first thing of the league, especially the NBA. Right, they were first to go. March 11th was that day for me. It was like that night. Yeah. We had a bunch of games, but one game still ended up playing out, and then it was stopped after that day. Yeah. For the rest.
Yeah, that's about right. Because I was gonna say it was March 12th for me, so it was like that very next day. Yeah. It's definitely interesting. I saw one of those funny videos or whatever. And it was like a bunch of guys like gathered like to be watching football, except it was like bowling TV. It was like how everybody gets together and cheers for sports, and all the sports shut down, and somebody like hit some pins down, and they're like, yeah.
So I know you're in a bit transition when it comes to just your names. Like, I don't think I shared this clip where I got these series of questions from you about finding your purpose in 5 minutes. But and the first one is, who are you? What in your name? Just your name. Who are you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I'm Alyssia Dujmovich Dodson. My name, I've changed my name so many times because I started acting when I was very, very young. And my first manager was like, yeah, you can't use Dujmovich. That's like too hard. Can't use it. So I ended up having a stage name for a while, and then when I got to be an adult, I was like, screw that. I like my name. It's unique, So, so I kind of like took it back, but that's why I said I'm trying to like streamline all of it, because I feel like I've got 3 or 4 different versions of my name out there. But yeah.
Sorry, responding here. I got a missed call. Next question. We know who you are now. What do you do?
I feel like I'm a Renaissance woman, but I'm an actor.
Aren't we all right now? This is like a kind of a Renaissance rebirth.
Yeah, we all got to kind of reconfigure everything. I'm an actor. I'm an actor at heart. I try to do what I can, but living in Houston, we don't have, obviously a huge market. So I have also kind of, found other things to do, that's sort of within that sphere that makes me happy, that I enjoy doing. So I also coach acting. I put actors on tape for auditions. I've been a casting assistant a bunch of times. I've worked as a PA on set. I do standardized patient work where I, act like I'm a patient for medical school students. So I do all sorts of things, but it's still all in the, realm of what I do. Yeah.
And you listed a bunch of things. Who do you do all that for? Like, overall?
I'm my own boss for the most part. A lot of the work that we do as actors, if we're doing like PA work or casting work or whatever, it's all independent contractor stuff. So we kind of don't always work for one person in particular. So, maybe this casting company says, hey, so-and-so is looking for a PA. Are you interested in doing it? And, yeah, sure. All right, we'll show up here this time, So there's a lot of that. The standardized patient work that I do is for Baylor College of Medicine, but that's really considered independent contractor work too. So it's a lot of freelancing and, kind of being my own boss in a way, but obviously when I go to work, wherever I do, go, if it's outside of my home, it's whoever's in charge of whatever project it is. So
a better question maybe, who would benefit from what you do? Let's put it that way.
Well, I work with all sorts of actors. So in terms of my own acting and my coaching, my audition taping, certainly anybody that's, interested in acting. Although I also, have coached different people on just, communicating and things like that. So I've worked with, people who are business owners and want to be, more commanding in front of their staff, so I kind of I always feel, or have had the feeling, that even if you take acting classes, and I say this a lot of times to parents of kids and teens especially, is even if you take acting classes and you don't, become an actor, or you don't become famous or whatever, there's so many things that you learn and tools that you have at your disposal that help you in other areas of life. So for me, I think that that's a part of it too, is looking beyond what my specific trait is, and seeing how I can help other people. And yeah, that's what I would say. And in terms of like employment, you know, certainly, you know, as somebody who acts and helps out behind the scenes, I'm always, you know, happy to lend my services to different projects. But in terms of my business, I definitely feel like it's, you know, beneficial to anyone really that's, you know, like I said, that wants to act or even just have some more confidence. Because I've had people come to my classes too before who are just like, well, I just want to be here because I want to, you know, do something fun, or, you know, I need more confidence when I'm presenting, you know, in front of my class or in front of my office. So.
And then what is the overall expectation that you have of when you're helping someone? What's the overall expectation?
Like for me towards them, or or for like, what should they expect?
You towards them, and then the next question will be the other way around.
Yeah. Well, as an actor, my expectation, you know, anytime I work on a project is, you know, to learn whatever will come with that. You know, I don't, every project's different, right? And sometimes you work on bigger projects, and sometimes it's indie films, and sometimes it's commercial. So I think I'm always excited and open to, you know, learning new things every time I go, even though I've been doing it for a while. You know, and as a coach, I try not to put too much, I try not to put pressure on my students in a sense of like, okay, well, if you don't do this, or you're not, you know, making this sort of progress, that means you're failing or you're not doing it, you know, well enough. So I typically want them to feel like that they are getting what they need and what they want out of the class or session or whatever. For example, I have one girl that I've been working with for a really long time, and she came to me one day and she was like, you know, we've been working together for a while, but I don't think I want to be an actress when I grow up. Like, that's not what I want to do for my career. And so I said, okay. And she's like, but I don't want to stop coming to class because I really like it and I have fun and I, you know, enjoy spending time with you. And I said, well, you know, just because you're not going to be an actor, you know, in the long run doesn't mean that these aren't skills that are going to help you, right? So I said to her, why don't you sort of together, why don't we both brainstorm on ways that we can use some of the things that we do here to help you with things that you feel like you need to be prepared for as you go off into the field that you are preparing for. You know, so I kind of tried to turn it around for her. So I think in terms of, you know, what my students or clients would expect is just really personalized attention, you know, and making sure that every person that comes, and even if it's a class of 8-10 people, that like each one of them has their own goals. And so even though we're doing stuff as a group, I'm still making sure that each one of them in particular is feeling like their own personal goals are being, you know, worked on as well, so that it doesn't feel like it's not a one size fits all sort of a thing.
And then the second question, that the last question of the series, as an acting coach, as a coach, what's the expected behavior, change of behavior of who you coach?
Behavior in you know,
inspiration, you inspired to take action. What action? What's the expected behavior of change?
Yeah, I think that it's, I mean, I don't think it's any secret that the business has evolved a lot, because with, you know, all the streaming services, YouTube, just all of the many ways that you can put yourself out there and put your work out there. So, you know, I feel like young actors especially, but anyone that's in the business you can't pretend like that's not there. So I also encourage them to do their own stuff, you know. Make a TikTok video, right? Or let's make one during class, or so what I want for them to do is to sort of keep their eyes open, be paying attention to what's going on, and then look at how, like, what they might want to do to take part in that, or to further their acting in ways that they hadn't thought of before. Ultimately, just making an effort, outside of the classroom. Because if you do want to be an actor, nobody's gonna come banging your door down. You've got to really want it yourself. So if I give a script to somebody and I'm, or to people, and I'm like, all right, I want this memorized when you come back to class next week, I'm going to hope that it's memorized. And you're going to be able to get more out of it if you do those things. I don't get angry when that doesn't happen, and I try to be understanding. But for me, the important thing is, well, what did you do this week? To try and further your career, or investigate further into it to decide, hey, is this what I want to do? So, are you submitting to your own auditions? Are you watching TV shows? And I can't even tell you how many actors or, students that say they want to be actors, when I ask them what they, like to watch, how many of them don't watch things? And that always is strange to me, because I'm like, well, you don't watch anything? No. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, you don't need to be a couch potato, but you should probably watch, some of the stuff that's being done right now, so that if you get an audition for it, especially if it's like a local thing, so if you're auditioning for something and it shoots locally, but you haven't watched a single episode of it, that's just being a little bit, I don't know, irresponsible or lazy, I guess. So
learn about
just that they're keeping their pulse on things, and they're doing something during the week, is even if it's not something that's big, just as long as they're still honoring that.
So you say definitely learn about the local stuff that's happening near you, and familiarize yourself with that.
Right.
Because you never know, like, however long a production like that can go on for.
Right,
they may
exactly.
Call for a new season,
when we're
new
lucky
characters.
enough to get a project that shoots here, because that in and of itself is like, oh my goodness, then hopefully you're, what you're auditioning for, and you've watched some of it.
Switch gears a little bit for a quick moment and go into some positives here that I like to bring in to touch on. What are you excited about today?
Well, I've been playing trivia on Friday nights with some friends that like the same show. We all we're obsessed with this show. So I that's something I started doing during the quarantine. I'm part of like a fan group, and so they started up a trivia on it. But there's like 20 of us, and it's really neat because the woman that started the whole group and started creating these, she kind of started doing these cons like you would a Comic Con, but just specifically for the show, because the fans for the show are pretty amazing. And but it's been really cool because I've gotten to interact, not in this way, but at the different events, I've gotten to interact and meet with and have conversations with actresses from the show in a way that just doesn't happen in America. It's an Australian show. And that's been really amazing. So I'm always excited about that. And anytime I get to talk about it and, delve deeper into that world, it makes me excited. And a larger scale of what I'm excited about, it's, you know, hopefully looking at how we adapt moving forward. You know, what are the projects that are going to come down the pike that, you know, we're going to get to be auditioning for and putting people on tape for. And you know, my hope is that because some of these limitations in production are really going to make people have to focus on good writing and you know, not lots of flashy things probably for a little while. And so my hope is that that also benefits the business and the quality of some of the productions that will, you know, stay on board, because pilot season was cut short. So I feel like a lot of shows are going to get a little bit more time to kind of develop already occurring storylines and things like that. So even though it was kind of disappointing, sort of the way the season went, the pilot season went, I feel like in the long run, it's probably going to be beneficial. And so I'm excited about that for sure.
I was trying to bring up, like, with an ongoing story there, with introduction of new characters instead of a new series, just bring in a new character or two.
Yeah, you know,
So
and
there's
instead of
the
going,
opportunity.
okay, well, we're going to pull this show because it had a crappy season, you know, and put a new show in its place. It's like, well, okay, maybe their season wasn't the best, but hey, why don't we watch them all? And, you know, we start our writer's room and we start working harder to, you know, go into more depth and add new characters and things like that. So I guess that's where I'm hoping that there's, you know, some positive things that come out of it. You know, I think it's taken a long time for the industry to adjust to all of the streaming stuff and all of the ways that people watch things now, you know, because I feel like there was still a significant amount of time where they weren't taking into account those numbers, and lots of good shows were canceled, probably prematurely, when maybe now they wouldn't be, you know, had they really been taking all of it into account. So I feel like this is in some ways an extension of that too.
And by all means, they're getting the attention now.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you grateful for?
The opportunity to do it, you know. I don't think that, and, you know, I'm not famous, obviously, but the fact that I can be involved, get to be in projects that are, you know, showing, you know, in the movies or on television, that I get to, you know, do what I love in some capacity, as much as I get to do it, I think is certainly something I'm really grateful for. You know, there's always that like running sort of joke or cliche that, you know, all actors are waiters, and I love waiters, but I just did not, and I've been a waiter, and, you know, worked in the service industry there, but at the same time, I didn't necessarily like want to agree that that was the only option, right? Like I wanted to, you know, so for me, I didn't move to LA. So it was like, okay, well, is it possible for me to participate in this business and still act and still do stuff, even though I'm not, you know, in the hub of where it's happening? And can I do it without having to do something that doesn't necessarily feed that creative passion that I have?
And me being from Houston, I've been in Dallas for the last few years working with the sports region. I've noticed, maybe not such a big market in film as you kind of want it to be, but I've noticed, and what I'm doing, I was part of a meetup group that met every month down in Houston downtown. We met at a pretty good restaurant actually downtown, right in Midtown. And the short film game in Houston, I saw is pretty big, and I've heard that from.
Lucky, stop. Sorry, my dog's barking. I didn't want it to stop. Oops, so sorry about that.
That's one thing. With Zoom, I'm in Toastmasters, and one of our Toastmasters president, she has like 6 dogs, and she's often like, I'm muting myself because if I unmute myself, you'll hear all my dogs talk.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
well, it's when most of the time I feel like when people talk about the industry, here in Texas, or and they're like, oh well, it's a small market, like they're referring to the sort of like the triangular Austin, Dallas, Houston area, right? So most actors, and if you're not from here, like if you haven't been acting here already, like I have a couple students that actually moved here from LA, and were sort of asking me what's the market like here, what's it like to get an agent here, what are the expectations. And so of course I kind of jumped into talking to them about like, well, really you're not just working in Houston. You're working, you're expected to go and audition and travel and go to callbacks in all 3 of these cities. On top of that, it's really the whole Southeast region. So, we're talking New Orleans and Atlanta too. And if you say you don't want to do that, I mean, yeah, it's fine. But because it is a smaller market, the agents are wanting you to want to do that anyway, right? Because they're not going to make as much money if you're not willing to go to these auditions and callbacks and stuff in the other cities. So it's, it definitely is a different way of having to be, as opposed to if you were like in LA or in New York, where you're auditioning pretty much within your, radius of where you live. Whereas here, it's just there's a lot more travel involved just to audition, not even to have any guarantee that you're going to book it and then make money, and so that can be challenging too, especially if you don't have a job that's flexible. And that was the other thing for me too, is that, and that's why so many people who are actors have historically waited tables, because it's a flexible type of thing, right? Like, and if you get an audition, ideally you can, have somebody go in for you and cover for you. But that's why for me, I was kind of looking at what are other things that I can do on my own, where if I have an audition, I don't have to ask permission, I can just do it, But it's definitely a different way to be that a lot of times people from those bigger markets are definitely not used to and probably don't love, But I'm like, dude, if you're in LA and you're sitting 2 hours to get from point A to point B, surely you can do it here to get from Houston to Austin. Same thing.
So you already mentioned audition. How important is to just audition and the number of auditions to just, if you just go in one and say, oh, I'm an actor, but how important is the audition?
I think it's really important. I think it's important because audition, I don't really know that I've ever met an actor that's like, I love auditioning. It's this really strange situation that's high pressure, so you're going to this situation where like in your mind, you're saying to yourself like, oh my God, I have to do good. I want to get this, especially if you really like the role, right? Or, you're wanting to prove yourself to your agent, whatever. You sort of go in there and you're expected to do this, not to mention that like, and I talk about this a lot of times with my students too, there's so many things that you have to do sometimes that feel weird and unnatural, and then I'm supposed to make that look believable, right? Like if you're doing, the example I'll usually give when I'm teaching is like, okay, well, if you're in Jurassic Park and you're auditioning for Jurassic Park, like that dinosaur's not really there, like in your audition, but you've still got to like scream and react and act like that dinosaur's right there, and even though, because you'll have some people like, oh, well, once I get it and I'm on set or whatever, and I'm like, oh, really? Are they able to, did dinosaurs make a resurgence? You're on set, it's not going to be any different, except there'll be more people and there'll be a green screen, so But you know, all in all, the challenge of auditioning is hard in and of itself. So if you're not doing it a lot, you're out of practice, just like anything else, right? And it's like a muscle, you know. And I think too, it's a lot of actors sort of, at least initially, have this inherent, I don't want this to sound bad, but this inherent like desperation, right, to like book work because they want it so badly.
Yeah, you said the
people
high
can
pressure.
smell that. Yeah, you know, they can like feel that off you, like, oh, I hope you like me, you know. So I think that is another challenge of auditioning, that the more that you do it, the less that sort of comes off of you, you know, and you can just kind of walk in there and, you know, hey. I've found that it is not wrong that a lot of times when it's a role that somebody doesn't really, not that they don't want it, but that it's not like, you know, their dream role or something. It's like, just, you know, whatever. Those are the ones that people book. Because they don't go in there like with any sort of, you know, oh, I really want to get this. It's just like, yeah, they go in there and they do it. Next thing you know, they get the job, you know, because they weren't pushing it. So yeah, I mean, auditioning, it's just, it just keeps you in the game and it keeps you comfortable, and it at least helps combat the nerves and the pressure to some extent. I mean, it probably can't get rid of all of it, but I really don't I don't personally get nervous auditioning anymore, unless it's something that's a big deal, you know. And a lot of stuff that's a big deal is a first round is a taped audition anyway, you know, so I can obsess in the privacy of my own home and do the scene 45 times, you know, and then pick the one I want to send in. Now, if you have a callback and you got to show up live at the callback and it's a big deal, then yeah, I mean, that's nerve wracking. There was one where I kind of freaked out. I mean, I did fine when I was there and I got the job, but I remember I came out and my mom went with me. I was an adult, but my mom, when I was little, she was always, you know, she took me to all my auditions. And so since this was a big one, I was like, hey mom, you know, do you want to come with me for old time's sake? And she was so excited. And so we went, and she waited in the car. Like I was so proud. She didn't even come in. She let me go in. I came back out afterwards and I like opened the car door and I just like had to stand there for a second. And I was like, you know, my heart was racing. She was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I just need a minute. Because I had been so nervous and like was like trying to hold it in. I was just, oh my God, I just lost it there. You know, I just kind of like let it all out. But in most circumstances, I feel like the more you audition, the less scary it gets and the easier it gets. And that way, you know, so anyways, yes.
When you talk about it, going to audition and you have to you're talking to a character that's technically not there. I equate that to being like on a Zoom call. Like the biggest thing these days is to look at the camera. You actually have to look away from the person that you're talking to. Look at the camera if you actually want to like look at the camera. I like to say it's the eyes. It's the eyes to the world. The camera is the eyes to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And
you bring up a good point. I hadn't actually thought of it that way before, but you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I equate that to you're looking at something and you have to look away, and you have it's hard to do, like especially in like a Zoom setting.
Even if you have a reader, you know, with you in the room, right, and you have like a physical person you are able to play off of, you know, if it's something if they're not, a lot of times it's not another actor, right? So they're not sitting there like trying to give you a good performance. They're reading it, you know, and so you've still got to create all of that stuff. You know, you've got to make it believable. You've got to pretend that it's, you know, your parent or the love of your life or whoever you're talking to in the scene, you know. And then if you have multiple people in the scene, you want to split your eye line so it looks like you're talking to multiple people. But you have to do all of that and be able to like produce that the second you walk in the room, right? So you go into the audition, and if you're in there live, it's like, okay, well, I know I'm talking to 3 people in this scene. Okay, where am I going to put them? and your mind is doing all of that while you're walking in, hi, how are you? And you're doing your slate. And, so you're sort of like there's so many things that you're trying to sort out in your head, but still look cool and together. And it's no big deal. And, you've done this 1,000 times.
Another thing I wanted, that was one of 3 things that, and just getting on sets, even if it's not in front of the camera, if it's just getting on sets, keeping that motivation up on just getting on sets, even if it's just a production assistant. I'd say just a person, but even as a production assistant and network.
I still do PA work. I'm not, I enjoy it. I don't do it all the time just because that's not, what I do, but I also do it sometimes. I would say I probably do PA work a couple times a year. And I do it because I like it. I enjoy it. I like being on the set, but a lot of new actors that, too, that like train with me or whatever, they'll ask me what they can do. And I always tell that to them, go be a PA, get on a set, or be an extra or whatever. I think too that a lot of people have this fantasy about what it is to act. And so I think that if, that's part of what makes it so important of getting on a set is like getting on there and seeing what it's actually like to shoot something. You may love it and be like, oh, this is amazing. Or you may be like, wow, this really wasn't what I thought it was going to be like, and I bring this up a lot of times with people, especially if they have done a lot of theater. Because theater's there's a lot more continuity to the performance, right? Because when you're doing a play, we do the play start to finish every night, right? And there's a sequence and everything builds, and you have a real person there, and nobody's like stopping the scene, 2 lines in and saying cut, and we got to change the camera angle, And so like when
change the audience, change the audience perception in the theater. Yeah. Intermission. All right, the audience sits on this side.
Yeah.
And everybody when you come back in intermission.
Yeah. So, to actually see like, okay, the finished product that we see when we're just watching a movie or watching a show is very, very different from the actual process of doing it. A lot of people don't even know the frequency with which like scenes are shot out of order. Right. So like, you got to know where you at as your character in the script. Because one day you might be doing a scene from the beginning of the show or the movie. And the next day you're doing something from the end, but you can't play the beginning like the end, right? So you've got to really kind of keep track of all of that and know what you're doing. There's lots of, it's so much shorter, it's like a few lines at a time. When I've done some editing work, so one of the workshops or camps that I do is a movie making camp. And I usually do them during the summer. And what we'll do is we kind of do it start to finish. So like the kids, teens, whichever, however old the group is or whatever, we'll start and we'll be like, okay, well, what are our ideas? So we come up with some ideas and decide what we want to do. And then we shoot our movie, and it's mostly improv based. We sort of have an outline, and then, we go from there. And then the back half of the camp is about like editing it and putting it together and adding sound effects and music and all of that to really get an idea for how much that changes how the final product, looks and feels and everything. But what you learn when you start doing that is like, oh my gosh, when you're watching something, you don't really think about the fact that camera is jumping around, every 10, 15, 20 seconds. So it's not that it doesn't ever just slow down and stay on one person for a minute. There's a lot of editing back and forth, and you're watching it and you're not even thinking about it. You're not even thinking like, oh, well, if I was shooting that, that director would be cutting like every 3 lines sometimes, or we shoot a scene that's 2 pages, but we're doing it from all these different angles and all these different perspectives. Or when I'm getting my close up, the star, the lead, right? Like they went back to their trailer and I had to act with a stand-in. So there's all these different practical things that in film acting and TV acting that people don't think about. that I feel are important things to like teach and communicate. So of course I do that, you know, when I'm teaching class and lessons, but I also think that you don't really get it until you get on set, you know, and that's why I tell people, go be a PA, go, you know, get on there, go be an extra, just be in it and around it, because that's how you learn, you know. And just like anything else, you know, networking and talking to people is such a big part of this business too. So it helps in that area as well.
Yeah, looking when you're trying to get my thought back. It was as you stated in the beginning, and you go into audition, you're talking to no one. Well, you go on set, you see other stand-ins,
Mm-hmm.
and you're talking, and this is what people do, that the productions do to. It may not be the actual person playing that role, but you actually will have a person there, which give it a whole different vibe.
Yeah. I was doing a film with somebody who's a well-known actor, and we did it from a zillion different angles, and we finally, like, my close-up was the last shot of the day. And it really wasn't his fault, truthfully, that he really had, like, there wasn't much he could have done. But the close-up, they, you know, set up a dolly, and then they, you know, had the camera come on the dolly and zoom into my face during the shot that they were trying to get. Well, in order to get the shot, like, they had to be where he was, you know, and so the thing that I was reacting to all day was now gone, you know. So he went back to his trailer, and it really wouldn't have mattered anyway, because I had to, so then I'm having to react to something that's not actually happening, you know, on my big moment, right? My big close up, like, my moment is like, you know, okay, well, now I've got to pretend. It's basically like the audition again, you know. And then I've got the camera coming at me, and I've been doing this my whole life, and I apparently, my eye kept going to the camera and looking at the camera, and I obviously I wasn't doing it on purpose. I didn't even know I was doing it. And they're like, you keep looking at the camera, and I'm like, I know I'm not, you know. And yeah, but our eyes are trained to follow movement, right? So even if I started one place, as soon as that camera started moving, my eye would like go to it. So we ended up having to like put a sticker on something so that I wouldn't move my eyes. And I was embarrassed in the moment, but I still like to tell the story, because it's just, I didn't know that that was going to happen, or even that I was going to do that, you know, when I was like getting my big close up, that I was, you know, and it was like, yeah, right. So, yeah, so all sorts of things. I just think, you know, I certainly like feel like technique's important, of course, and all of those, you know, things that you do in acting class. But I also think that it's important to learn how to be on a set and what to expect on a set. And definitely the best way to do that is just to be there.
And lastly, with this, it's not just going to auditions, but you got to search for them. You got to look for them. Just like putting a resume together,
right?
For anything, for any job, for putting a resume, searching for roles, shows, auditions, scripts, maybe even creating a script.
Yeah, all of that.
Mm-hmm. Writing your own,
you know,
so I've heard a lot of times where I want to write something for me.
Mm-hmm. I think that all of those things are good. You know, I think that you always want to be careful, right? Because there are certainly some places where people are going to try and scam you, you know. So I always tell people, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is, right? That's just a fact. You know, you're not going to probably get the lead role in something from an open call for Disney, or for an open call for a big company that we all know of, you know. So at the same time, there are plenty of resources and opportunities out there for actors, whether or not you have an agent, you know? So I tell people, like, dude, you don't need to have your professional headshots and an agent quite yet to just start submitting, because you can look at like if the colleges nearby have a film program, you know, frequently they'll be looking for you know, actors that they can cast to put in their, you know, final projects and things like that, right? So those, you want to find opportunities where you can have bigger roles, because once you get an agent and you start auditioning for, you know, some of the more maybe like known projects that you would, you know, or commercials and stuff like that, but particularly if it's TV shows and films, early on you're going to start auditioning for like what we call 5 and unders, which means 5 lines or less, day player roles, you know? So the nice thing about auditioning for student films, indie films and stuff like that is that you have a chance to get some larger roles, which, you know, gives you experience. It gives you more stuff that you can put on your reel to market yourself. And so, yeah, there's definitely, and in terms of like those resources, I have a bunch of them on my website. But we have the Texas Film Commission is great. They've always, you know, they're always posting stuff there. You know, some of the stuff is paying. Some of it's deferred. Some of it's like, well, you know, you'll get an IMDb credit and some food. And, you know, so there's a whole range of stuff. So what I tell people too is, you know, just be cautious, right? Don't do something that feels weird to you. But definitely get out there and start, you know, putting yourself out there and trying. And then, like you said, yeah, making your own stuff too, you know? I have this had already started to happen. And I think it's going to probably happen even more with everything that's gone on with the quarantine, in that as television and the streaming services have blown up, in, you know, we're in what we're calling the golden age of television right now. A lot of your A-list film actors began to migrate over. So the number of roles available for day player actors or actors that are trying to work their way up begins to lessen, right? Because you've got sort of the tier is shifting. So because of that, I think a lot of actors who are just getting started or who have been doing this a while, but now suddenly maybe aren't going to get the kind of stuff that maybe they were getting. Yeah, it's like, do your own stuff, create your own work, you know, get out there and just do it, you know, or find a group of people that you trust, that you enjoy collaborating with, and, you know, try and collaborate with that and get together and do stuff. I mean, you see it too in Hollywood. You see that there's different cliques and different groups of people that sort of, you know, maybe one person starts to, you know, have some really good success, and they'll kind of, you know, bring their, you know, people along with them that they also have worked with and known for so long, you know. So that's definitely something that happens on all different levels. And so yeah, just be out there trying to do it, looking for it, practicing. And then, yeah, you can practice at home too. There's all, you know, all sorts of places where you can download scripts, or, I mean, I'll be watching a show, and if I see a monologue on a show that I love, I'll write it down. That way I can start having and creating or, you know, putting monologues together that other people don't have, you know, because it can get repetitive too. A lot of the sort of, there's a lot of people, you know, don't go very far in their search, you know, so it's like you see the same monologues over and over and over again. So it can be helpful to begin to transcribe, or, you know, put your own book of material together and stuff like that, so that you can practice.
With the more and more known actors, actresses, with more of them coming into the online world in this online distribution age,
Yeah.
do you think there's a limit of productions being added to these platforms? So I kind of want to say that maybe there's no limit.
It doesn't seem like there is currently, but I don't know. I don't know what'll happen because
I mean, I
part of me
imagine.
thinks that like we'll hit a ceiling, right? Where it's just like it's so inundated that it's hard to find, what you need. At the same
Well,
time,
like,
I don't know that that's true because I also like the fact that there's so many different ways that you can get content now, and you've got so many niche like markets. So there's all sorts of like there's something for everybody, right? And you're seeing that a lot more too, which I think is cool. So
because
I
like
don't
if
know. It'll
you,
be interesting dude, when reality TV sort of was busting onto the scene, I hated it so much. And I was just like, there's no way this is gonna last. And I think the height of its popularity lasted a lot longer than I thought it would. But I do think it finally started to turn, and people seem to gravitate back towards scripted shows. But I think that only happened because television got better.
see, and I'm talking more from like a physical limitation. Like back, TV spot, it's hard. It's you have a TV spot. It's usually wrapped together with another show, a few ads, and then preceded by another show, and it's all clumped together into one programming lineup for the day, week, and they
Right.
all clump together. But the only real limitation I see on these distribution platforms is like physical space of uploading to a server. Other than there's no like, it's non-linear. It's like
Yeah.
where TV is just linear, time is linear. This
Hmm.
is all this is non-linear. So
Yeah.
as far as being on the timeline, there's
Yeah. I think the possibilities are, and then now even like you said, even I put somebody on tape for an audition yesterday that was for a Snapchat show, television show, like a scripted Snapchat show. And I was like, what? How are you even like, I was just like, that's crazy. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think the like you said, it's not linear. The possibilities are pretty vast. And it seems like people are embracing that.
and yeah, there's Snapchat. There's you familiar with the Snapchat app
I
as how it
haven't, but like
works?
I've used it with my stepson, but I haven't.
This
I
is
don't. I don't spend a lot of time. I'm very uncool.
dude, like not to like purposely bring that out, but like it was there's this whole like secret background part of Snapchat where you can go connect with your friends, or there's this public sector section on
Mm,
the app, and that's where those
gotcha.
shows are.
Okay, I
Yeah,
didn't know that. I really didn't. Like when she said that yesterday, I was like, really? Huh? In my head, I'm going, how is that even possible? There you go.
and it's like public. It's a public Facebook page,
Yeah.
or Facebook Watch has become a big thing another
Yeah.
to compete with YouTube. Facebook
Oh
and
yeah.
Facebook Watch, I think they added a few
Yeah. Yeah. It's like everybody's getting
things
in the game
already.
now. Yeah. Hmm.
Facebook Watch,
YouTube. There was
Hulu
another
if you
one I'd
wanna.
heard about recently too that was gonna try their hand at it, but I can't remember what it was.
So it's finding the platforms that are looking for content that people want to see, watch,
Yeah.
and it goes with the times too.
Yeah.
Back, I guess it's still big. Marvel, the Marvel series, people
Right.
want a superhero. It
Yeah.
goes with times what people want to see and
Hmm.
hear.
Right. And
You're
knowing where
talking
you fit
radio.
in too, I think is important, at least to some degree. Kind of going, okay, well,
Yeah.
what's my type, or where am I going to find, you know, my window of opportunity, um, that's maybe larger at one point than maybe it would have been at another point or whatever.
Where's that money shot for you? So let's see. When did you realize, or what, that you wanted to do this in the entertainment industry?
Guys, a few times over. I mean, I've done it for so long, so I was like, when I started as a kid, I certainly did. But as an adult, I remember this moment. I went to UT, and I was getting my theater degree, and just between high school and summer school, I was gonna finish like a year early. And I started to panic, and I remember like I called my mom, and I was like, "Oh my God, what am I gonna do with the theater degree? What am I doing? I'm not ready for life." And she was like, "Well, why don't you get another degree?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay." So I spent another year, and I got a PR degree. And towards the end of that year, they offered to sort of take us on a trip to New York to visit with various firms, to get a feel for, what it would be like working there. And I remember being there, and I would walk into these offices, and I would just sort of, I remember there were a couple times where I'd sort of not had a panic attack, but I started to get like really anxious, because I was realizing that I didn't really want to do that. And that none of that was really exciting me. Like that was not the world I wanted to be in. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it just wasn't where my heart was. And we'd be like walking down the street to go to one of these meetings, and we'd pass, one of the theaters, with their show posters up, and I would like look longingly at them, and, just so badly I was like, I just want to be in there, like I don't want to be in that office. I want to be in there. And so that was definitely a moment as an adult where I remember just going like, okay, so, I need to be doing that and not this, I need to not, that's okay. It's great that I got this degree, and I'm sure I will use it in different ways, but, I don't want to use it in a traditional sense. I want to stick with being, an actor and being in the business. So that was definitely a moment, a realization moment for me.
And can I ask us about anything? What's harder, getting started or keeping it going?
I think it depends, because I do think it is hard to get started as well. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's harder if you're an adult and you're jumping in. It is more challenging because the competition is higher. So, and their expectations for you are going to be higher than maybe if you were a kid. Even just in the sense of like, as a kid, you're limited by what your parent will sort of allow you to do or what they'll take you to do, right? So it's more forgiving, and you'll have agents, in LA that will still be willing to sign you and let you audition and stuff like that, even if you don't live in LA, right? Because they recognize that your parent can't just up and, relocate you, at least not immediately. So I think that when you start as an adult, those expectations, it's like, okay, well, if you want to do this, then we expect you to jump in, in the deep end and be ready to go. Are you going to move to LA? Because if not, we're not going to sign you, and you're not going to get signed by an LA agent if you're not planning on moving and living there, So and then even here in Houston, if you decide you want to start and use, the agents here will still expect to see training on your resume. They're going to expect to see credits already. So those things that we were talking about, submitting yourself for auditions and doing your own work and getting some, like all of that are things that you want to be doing, from the get-go, because agents are going to be looking for those things. So there's a bit of a higher expectation and competitiveness as an adult starting than a child. But at the same time, as someone who, like, since I've been doing this since I was little, from my perspective, and for me, I feel like it's more challenging to keep it going because I've been doing it a long time. So you're sort of just facing different challenges, whether it's just, feeling like you're beating your head against a wall. I think there's a statistic that actors will book 1 in 10 auditions, and you often don't even get 10 auditions, in a year sometimes. So it can be sort of like, why am I doing this? Or because it's a smaller market, the casting directors do get to know you, right? So sometimes you've got to be thinking about ways that you can reinvent yourself, or how can you make yourself interesting again, You know, are you training still? Are you learning new skills? What are you doing to keep yourself marketable? Are you getting new things for your reel and stuff like that? So that those casting directors will continue to call you in and try and, you know, help you get booked on different projects. But usually what I'll notice is that, like, I'll get like a new set of headshots, let's say, and typically initially I would like, it will increase my amount of auditions. And then you'll kind of get to a point where it's like, I haven't really been auditioning a lot lately. You know, what do I need to do? And then you kind of got to go, okay, well, I don't know. Do I need to shift my look, get some new headshots? What do we got to do here? So I think in that regard, it's challenging in a smaller market because you're constantly having to reevaluate who you are and what you're doing and where you fit into it as an adult, but as somebody who's been doing this for a long time.
So the bit one. So getting started in, say this, when you, I had something in mind and it just left my, maybe it'll come back to me. It happens. I know, but
was it a question about like how to kind of get started, or what it's?
We touched on. Well, I know I wanted to bring up like the idea of the child stars and the parents who bring in these child stars, and how do we really know the child's interested, or because a lot of them just stay up. Like
that has been probably one of the more challenging parts of what I do as a coach, because I've worked with and met all types along that spectrum. And when I encounter someone who I can very clearly tell the child doesn't want to do it, not even just my inferring, like the child tells me they don't want to do it, and you know, the parents insisting that they do want to do it, that can be a little hard. I think because I started as a child, I tend to get a little passionate about it, maybe more so than somebody else might. I get a little worked up, but I think if the kid isn't, you know, every kid's going to get tired or burn out sometimes and not want to practice or not want to learn the lines or whatever, right? So that's a normal thing. But if you notice, you know, that you've gotten your kid into this and they just don't seem to want to do it, you know, are they saying, I don't want to go to class, or I don't want to do this audition, more than they're saying they do want to do it? Are they, you know, do you have to force them to practice? You know, those are certain things where it's like, okay, well, if you're noticing those things, this is probably not something that this kid really wants to do. But I think the other thing that is even more challenging is that if somebody does want to do it, but then they, you know, the kid starts and you've got like, it's a hard industry and there's so much rejection. There's more rejection than there is anything else, especially, you know, when you're trying to prove yourself and, you know, book work early on. So to get a child to understand that like just because you don't book a job or get a callback doesn't mean that you did bad. You know, it doesn't mean that you aren't, you know, that you don't have potential or that you're not worthy or whatever, is hard, you know? And so I try to encourage parents to do, there's like different things that I'll tell them to do. Like, you know, don't make the entire day about the audition, right? So you go to an audition, great, let it go get some ice cream or some dinner or do something fun afterwards, right? So there's not like the tempt like to obsess over it, you know? And kids don't really like to practice with their parents. And adults aren't really, like the parents aren't always, well, if you go to a live audition, you will not be allowed in the room with your kid. And So helping parents to understand that that's normal, and that it will be okay, right? You know, that especially if you're working with reputable people and you know that they're trusted or whatever, that's okay. But a lot of times parents, you know, there'll be this thing where the kid also doesn't want to let go of them, right? So it's like, well, kids have to be able to talk to other adults. They have to be able to talk to people without needing mom or dad right next to them. There's all sorts of things that are being asked of them. And, you know, they're being asked to kind of be little adults and to be professional when they're very, very young. And so I think the only appropriate situation for that is if the kid really, really wants to do it and pushes and asks to do it and practices and all that stuff. Otherwise, it tends to feel a bit like, I don't know, it can just go a number of different ways that they're upsetting, you know? So just saying, hey, you know, you've got to be able to let that go too, which is sometimes hard for people, you know? So, but I try to be honest, you know, with parents when they ask me, but they need to, but my thing with parents is that it's like, you need to remember that whether or not they're doing good is not based on how many jobs they book, right? And that they're there to be their support system and their parent, not their coach or their business manager, you know? And even if a child doesn't say that it bothers them, like, we are always wanting our parents' approval, you know? So frequently, like if I'm taping with a kid and I'm reading with them and the parents, you know, been insistent about staying, you'll notice the kid's eyes will unknowingly dart to their parent wherever they're at in the room, you know? And so then that's what, you know, I show it and I'm like, okay, yeah. So why don't you, you know, you can step over there, you know, let's just get out of eye shot at least. You can stay, but let's get you out of eye shot, because we're programmed that way. I mean, even as an adult, I will still catch myself sending audition tapes to my parents sometimes. Do you like it? You know, so we're just sort of, it's like, it's in our DNA, you know? So if you can understand that, then you also need to understand how, like, okay, my role is to, that was great, I'm so proud of you, hey, let's go get some dinner and, you know, talk about something else, you know, so that they can separate the two and that they don't equate the love and approval they're getting from their parent with how well their audition went or if they booked a job. That is upsetting.
Is there something better that we can use, you can use to measure the level of success instead of how many roles you book?
Yeah.
What's a better measurement?
Mm-hmm. A lot of times I'll say, for me personally, if I'm getting callbacks for most of the things, or I'm getting complimented and, you know, like, oh, maybe I'm not right for it, but hey, you did it, you know, this was really good. Like, I auditioned for This Is Us back when it was in casting. Is that the one? No, I'm sorry, that was a different one. I did, but this is a different one. I auditioned for a show called Dietland. That's what it was. And I actually flew to LA and I got to, you know, go and be in the room. And, you know, after I finished, I remember the casting director said, you know, gosh, you were really great. You had really good comedic timing. I really liked this and this about it, and really nice work, right? I didn't get it, but the feedback that I got and sort of the way the audition went for me, like, felt satisfying, you know? So I didn't feel like it was a waste of a trip or a waste of my time. So that, you know, that, and then, yeah, I do tell, like, are you getting callbacks? You know, if you're getting callbacks, that means that they like you, you're doing well, right? Talent wise. There's so many other things that play into it. So to, like, book a job, there's so many other things besides talent that sort of have to line up. And then everybody has to agree that they all want you, you know, so it's a lot. So I think if you're getting callbacks or maybe even if it's not callbacks, but if you have casting directors that keep inviting you into audition, Like, to me, that's a good indicator of like, okay, I'm on the right track, I'm doing well. Because if they didn't like you, they wouldn't, and think you were good, they wouldn't continue to call you into audition. You know what I mean? So even that in and of itself, I think, is a measurement of, okay, I'm doing well, I'm on the right track, even if I'm not booking everything or getting callbacks for everything, you know, I'm still auditioning. And it's hard for people to get that. It seems especially hard for parents to understand that, right? Because they're like, oh, well, but they're not getting it, you know? Well, that's not the casting director's decision, right? The casting director doesn't just, you know, because a lot of times you'll hear people say something like, well, so-and-so casting is always calling me into auditions, but, you know, they never cast me in anything. Well, the casting director doesn't have the power to make that decision, right? The director and the producer and whatever, you know? So the fact that casting director is still calling you in all the time should tell you that they think you're doing well and they're trying really hard to help you, you know, get in front of more people. And that in itself is a victory or a good barometer too, in my opinion.
So instead of that 1 to 10, for every 10 auditions you book one role, maybe a better one, would you say, callback to booking ratio?
Yeah, am I getting callbacks for 50 to 75% of the stuff I'm auditioning for? That's, for me personally, that's where I like it to land. You know, if I audition for 10 things, I'm hoping I maybe get 5 callbacks, depending on what it is.
It's a numbers game.
6, 7. It just depends on what the projects are and how many people are auditioning. If it's a commercial, it's a little different.
Just put yourself out there.
What is your... you know, even just to be invited to audition for larger leading roles is an indicator too. So, you know, okay, well, I went in and I, you know, auditioned for these day player roles, but then I started getting auditions for bigger roles, you know? So like in the last handful of years, I got to audition for more leading roles on TV shows than I've ever auditioned for before, which is partially the industry and how it's changing, but it's also, to me, like indicative of, oh, cool. Okay. So like, I'm at least I'm not terrible, right? You know, I keep getting, you know, these significant and good auditions. So, you know, you got to keep trying. And then as an actor, it's just like, okay, well, how long do you want to keep trying? You know, is it forever? Is it just that's okay with you? Or are you going to draw a line somewhere? You know, but I definitely, those are things that I think are much easier barometers to kind of see how you're doing than how many jobs you book.
So what is your biggest achievement?
That's a tough one. Just because I think, like you know, there's all sorts of different types of achievements.
Something
in
that's
degrees.
Really memorable, something that you're proud of or memorable. That
well, I booked a movie called Leaves of Grass that starred Edward Norton and Susan Sarandon, Richard Dreyfuss, and Keri Russell, and then it was also directed and starred an actor, Tim Blake Nelson. And it was like as an adult, it was the first thing I did as an adult. First role I got as an adult that was kind of it was a big deal, you know, just in the sense of like the film and who it was and who was in it. And Edward Norton was producing it too. So that was the callback where I kind of flipped out when I left. I remember driving because I didn't know who was going to be in the room, and I knew who was producing. So I didn't know if I was going to walk into this, you know, callback room and get to meet him there, and as well as Tim Blake Nelson, who I, you know, was familiar with his work too. So, but I remember when I got that call that I booked the job because I was in a hotel room. I was like in between living situations, and it was just like I was in the room and my dog was with me, and I remember getting the call, and I would just, you know, I hung up, and I was kind of in shock initially, I think, and you know, and then I kind of started screaming and jumping around and crying, and I was really excited. But when I went to the set for that, it was very surreal, because it did feel like one of those, even though it was a small part, it just felt like one of those really big moments where you're like, oh, this is one of those dreams coming true, you know? And I think it's also really easy to talk yourself or let other people talk you down from things like that, right? Like, oh, well, it was just a small part or whatever, you know? And sure, it was. But at the same time, that doesn't make it any less cool and fun and, you know, an accomplishment. So it was a great experience. I remember the morning I was driving to the set. Any day where I get to feel like I'm, you know, like a real actor is a good day, right? That was definitely one of them, you know? So, yeah, that was really cool. That was a lot of fun. I had my own trailer. So I have like pictures of me outside my trailer. So as an actor, that certainly was one of the biggest moments, and I just really enjoyed that experience too, because I got to be there for about 5 days. I had 3 different scenes I was shooting, so that was kind of neat as well, just to kind of be on that set for not just one day, but multiple days, and getting to kind of see how it all worked. And dude, man, you know, they put in long days. That's something that nobody really talks a lot about. You know, I think I was on set 14 to 16 hours on at least 2 of the days out of the 3 that I worked. And then it was like over a weekend. So there were 5 days total, but we were off on this one day. And they have to pay you, they pay overtime after a certain point. But they also, like, I got per diem for food, but I was never not there. So they're like catering at 9 o'clock at night. Like they're having to call catering to bring like a huge dinner over. So you kind of feel like you're camping too, right? So anyway, so that one was a lot of fun. I really, that was a big moment for me.
Yeah, I've been on a few productions. One of them was 48 hour film festival for Houston.
That's a lot.
And we talked about shooting out of order, right? We shot the very last scene at 7 o'clock in the morning. I was actually DP on that.
Yeah, it's a lot. Or night, like all night shoots too.
And we went from 7 a.m. all the way, I think, almost 1 a.m.
Yeah, it's a long day.
And our crew was smart too for 40-hour film anyway. That we were handing them the tape as we were shooting more scenes, so editing as we go.
I also think just as an actor, like when you get on a set, for me, I remember the like where all the trailers were set up when I was doing that. It was maybe like half a mile, you know, from there to like where we were shooting. And they, you know, they like to come and like drive you around in golf carts. And I'm just like, I can walk the half mile, right? So I would like try and walk, and they would like pull up to me in the golf cart, and they're like, get in the golf cart. And I'm like, I could use the exercise. And they're like, get in the golf cart. So like, you know, you sort of, in some ways, that's a weird feeling, like when they treat you that way. And for me, it's especially because it's so clear when you're on a set, like how much harder the crew works than anybody else, you know, any of the actors. And the fact that, you know, that so much of the like the recognition and the sort of, you know, commercial acclaim goes to the actors, it always seems like a bit of an injustice to me, because everybody else is working so much harder, more consistently, right? Like the Grip didn't get 3 hours to chill in his trailer and read a book, but I did, you know? So it's like, I think it, if you're a good human being, you don't let it go to your head, you know, it's really important to just be appreciative and really get to learn like what everybody else does and how hard everybody else works to put it together. It's truly a collaborative effort, in which the actor is one small cog in a very big wheel, you know.
Well, as being respectful of time, I feel like we're just touching the surface of the ice with all the stuff. I have a lot more stuff to that I can like go into and
Sure. Yeah.
start a conversation on. But I would like to summarize everything we talked about so far,
Yeah, absolutely.
and come up with maybe three of the best tactics that
Hmm.
someone starting out, if they take, that, that guarantee at least that keep them self-interested and keep them motivated to move on to the next audition, going and just
I would
keep.
say, um, no, I would say when you're wanting to get started, be a student of the world in a way, right? So in terms of like creating characters and being an interesting human being too, watch other people, take notes, make observations, um, learn how to do new things, make yourself the type of person that's interesting, because um, that makes you a more interesting person, and probably a better actor. I think do it and get on as much, get on sets, participate as much as you can, and however you can, so that you can learn and grow and network and talk to people, and have a real actual concept of what it is to do this, and then go after it. You're training, you're, submitting, you're auditioning, you're, doing the work, and you're putting in the time and the effort to prove that this really is something that you want to do and that you love to do.
And where can we find the work that you've done? Social media, where
Yeah, I
start with
have
the work. IMDb, YouTube,
yeah,
Vimeo.
I'm my well, I have on my website, I have both my coaching and my acting sort of all kind of intertwined together. So you can see like clips from different things that I've been in. I'm still uploading them. I haven't gotten them all up, but I'm almost there. I've got a good few of them up. But then I also have the website. On my website, I try to, I have like a resources page that actors can go to, where it can show them different places they can get auditions or look for monologues, get scripts to practice. I've got my social media page where you can, visit I have a YouTube channel. I'm not always the best about keeping it super current. But I do have some videos on there too that give you tips on different things, different acting tips, or further resources that you can go to. And I'm on Facebook as well. And then I have, my different classes that I offer and what they're like too. So my website's a pretty good sort of cross combination of my coaching and my acting personally. But I'm on IMDb and as Alyssia Dujmovich, because that's what I use in my acting. So, and then what else? Where else? I have an Instagram that's still kind of sparse. There's more stuff on Facebook and YouTube, and then let's see, I feel like I'm leaving one out. Am I leaving out? Shoot, I know I am. I can't remember what I'm leaving out. Website, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. No, maybe I'm not. Oh, right, the movies. Yeah. At least three, but I think more, probably four, all like 4 or 5. But I think everything that I've been in film wise is available on Amazon or Amazon Prime. So Leaves of Grass, you can kind of, I think, get in a whole lot of different places just because it was more widely distributed. But I also, some of the indie movies I've been in, Lars the Emo Kid, Spirit Camp. I know they're available to watch on Amazon Prime. When I was very, very young, the very first film that I was in was The Professional with Natalie Portman and John Reno. I'm at the very, very end. So I don't know if you've seen that movie, but it's a good movie anyway. I highly recommend it. So you can spot that. But if you're looking for me, I'm like 9 years old. So, but all the other stuff is current. And then I've, done some commercials and TV shows and stuff here and there that's kind of scattered about.
I imagine all those are all it's all connected with the IMDb.
Yeah, exactly.
With your work.
Yeah.
Favorite place to hang out, social media. What platform? Favorite platform?
Facebook. I'm probably on Facebook more than anything. Yeah.
And I think
I'm old, right? So I think all this older 30s or mid 30s, right? We're all on Facebook.
I had to switch off my headphones. That minute. So some bonus questions here I like to end with here and end each episode. What do you want to learn from someone who has seen multiple success?
Say that one more time. I missed the end of it.
What do you want to learn from someone? What is it that you want to learn, or from who do you want to learn? It could be either or.
Anytime I admire an actor, I always am interested to know their process. And I tend to probably be I gravitate towards admiring actors that maybe encapsulate things that I want to be, or things that I wish I could continue to get better at. So I'm always really interested in really great character actors, people who every time they play a role, it feels like a different role, and they can really take on so many different just their range is very big. So in that regard, I'm always looking for thoughts from them on what they do and their process to create the characters that they create. I also love some of there's a show called Shrill that A.D. Bryant from SNL is doing. They just released the second season, and the third one just got commissioned. And it's so good. And she talks a lot about writing her own work and being an actor who writes and produces and creates their own work. So I really love that. And so I'm always asking actresses that I admire like that. Like when I got to meet my favorite actress last summer, and she gave me some tips and advice and things that weren't surprising, right? Like they were kind of I understood what she was saying. Although one of the things that she put emphasis on that I don't think we really emphasized very much in our film training in the United States. Now it's different with theater, and she comes from the theater background. So, but she's not American. She's Canadian and Australian, but is the physicality of things, so she does a lot of different, she fences, and she does a lot of different physical activities that keep her feeling agile and sort of give her the ability to physically transform herself from role to role as well. So that was a really great nugget of advice that I got from her. But yeah, if I got to meet with, if I were talking to A.D. Bryant about her show, and just even when I was talking to Pamela Rabe too, they said, yeah, it's great to have more roles for women, and more opportunities. But the only way that can continue too is if we've got people, writing and producing and directing that are, specific. And speaking about women, since I'm a woman, that's permeating through all of the areas, not just on camera, right? Because that's how we sort of create and develop all of our own stories. So I'm always interested in talking to other actresses I admire about those sorts of things. I don't know that was 3 things. I felt like it was 2. What else would I want to learn? Something like very practical that I always think would be, I'm always asking actors if like they come through and they've been in LA and they're passing through, and I'll say, when you're out there and you're taking class, do people ever address certain things that are hard to do in audition rooms or when you're doing a taping, like a fight scene or something that's very physical, stuff like that? And they really don't. So I think that's something that I'm always interested in asking other actors that are maybe, more successful or, that are, I don't know, a lot of them probably aren't auditioning anymore, but, how do you handle certain things in auditions that aren't easy to make it look believable? Like, I know it's a really specific question, but it's one that I always kind of come back to both as an actor and as a coach. So
what I like to call this what is your story, and it's long time from now, it's way in the future, you're in your perfect spot that you want to be in, wherever that is, the perfect age, and everyone's around you that you want around you. You're there, you've made it, you've done everything you wanted to do. What is that moment, that day, like? And describe
like, what would
maybe
that look like
what
for me?
yeah
I
the
think I've
ending to
long,
your perfect story.
yeah, I think I've long wanted to be on television. So somewhere in that realm, whether it's some sort of comedy or drama. I think for me, if I was somebody, I'm a big Grey's Anatomy fan, and somebody said yesterday, like, if you on a show like that, or like Mariska Hargitay, right, on SVU, would you be the type of actress that would embrace like a 15, 20-year career as one character, and knowing that that's going to be how you're known forever and you probably won't do much after that? Or would you want to get off that train and, continue doing other things? And I really thought about that. And I just thought, I mean, I don't know. I think it depends on like how old I was and where I was at and other things that I had done. But I'm somebody, I don't like change. Really bad with change.
It
Um,
depends. Like,
and
if you want
I love,
stability,
one of the things I love.
for
Mhm.
stability, to a 15-year in the same
Yeah.
spot.
And one of the things I love about theater is just that, you have this time that you're with people and you kind of create this little family and you get close. And I think that television is the only medium that kind of mirrors that in a way, and probably even goes beyond that. If you're on a show long enough, years people spend on shows, So for me and my personality, that would be like my dream, would just be to, spend 5-10 years on a TV show. But more specifically, I think I would love to do something where I got to be also a part of the creative development too, and like I said, I'm really in love with the show that Adie Bryant's doing, but I just think it's great that she even was able to create that and make it happen. It was like, okay, well, I see that there's a void, right, of whatever this is. And so I want to create that because I think it will speak to more people than maybe a network would have realized 10 years ago, And when I watched that show, I remember like after I watched the pilot episode a couple of years ago, the end of the show, I was like laughing and I was crying and it's like all of these different things. And I was thinking about it afterwards, and I was just like, I'd never watched something truly where I felt like I got to see myself, on, like, I just saw myself in this character and what she'd created. And I'd never felt that way before. And so I think it really touched me because I just thought I wanted to, I know it sounds weird, but like I wanted to thank her for that, for making that happen and for creating that. Because I had no idea that void, that I felt that at all. I might have kind of known it, but I didn't really know it until it's like, wow, So the fact that, I don't know, that she was able to sort of do that, and that gave me, you know, more hope for projects, you know, like that in the future. I think I would love to be able to pass that sort of thing along too, you know, so to be a part of the creation of something that is new and fresh, and inclusive, and makes people feel like they are understood, gives them a space to laugh and cry and, you know, feel gotten. I think that's, for me, that's why, hopefully that's why most of us do it, but I know that's why I still love to act.
And before I go into this, I had to I was contemplating bringing it up earlier, but familiar with this popular show Friends?
Mm.
Joey being an actor, I one specific show where he technically gets a call back for Days of Our Lives.
Yeah.
And he goes in expecting that he's gonna have the part. It's like, well, I'm this guy such and such. I'm not auditioning for this. And he doesn't audition. He walks out. He storms out. And he ends up coming back to him. He's like, I'll do the audition. I'll do the audition. Like, should have done the audition in the first place. Can't always, even if you had the role before.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, I can't even tell. Look, I've auditioned for so many one-liner parts and small parts that have the most hideous character. Like, I'm gonna give you one. It was huge white trash Dairy Queen woman was one of them. So think that, but like many variations of, you know, sort of, you know, so to be able, and you do it, right? Like you do it because it's an audition. You're trying to, you know, build your resume. That doesn't mean that it's not frustrating, you know, that you're just like, seriously, right? Like, oh, you know, come on, you know, so you do it. And then hopefully eventually you get to a point where you can create something that you love that's beyond that, you know? So yeah, I mean, you got to pay your dues, and sometimes it sucks or it makes you feel like, seriously, you know? So certainly my hope is that I can get to a point where, you know, that changes, right? You know, for me, for myself, but also just in general.
Some people, it may be hard to play the white trash type of person.
I mean, I have fun with them, dude. I can't even tell you how many like white trash gas station attendants.
A challenge, I should say. A good challenge that some people would look forward to. So, and give my final question: why is the film industry important in this world?
I think that's a really great question, especially right now. I saw something somewhere that was on Facebook or something like that, where it's like, you know, when things happen in the world, right? Like we turn to artists to provide, you know, comfort or familiarity or whatever, you know, to share with one another the human experience. So I think the film industry and television industry in that way is important because it helps connect us, you know, to other people and remind us that we're not alone and that there's other people out there that, you know, are having similar experiences. So for me, that's why it's important, you know, that someone who might need to laugh that day gets, you know, laughs at something that, you know, an artist, an actor, you know, something that they've watched. So I think, yeah, just to really connect us as human beings, you know, and to remind us that we're not alone. And even though we all have our own lives and we have differences, the human experience isn't unique to, you know, one person. You know, we're all going through our own journey. And
yeah.
So I think when we see that reflected back to us on camera, on screen, it makes us feel less lonely, but also hopefully is able to take you out of those, whatever it is that you're feeling in that moment, and sends you back out into the world with that hope and that belief that, we keep going. Whatever it is, we get back up and we keep going.
And it's especially right now, you see all the public figures, athletes,
Right.
they're just like this, like we are together in the Zoom,
Exactly.
in just a box by themselves, and
Right.
everyone's
Exactly.
doing this. This is
Yeah.
everyone doing this together, the same
Yeah,
thing.
it's like it's not unique to anyone. Yeah, I really love the amount of people that celebrities and actors and performers that have been, getting on and doing things like this, because I think that it does help to make it make everything feel more connected. And even when I meet somebody that I really admire, I certainly get, anxious, and initially I sort of have that starstruck feeling, if it's someone that I'm really excited to meet. But typically after a few minutes of being around them and talking to them, suddenly all of that sort of mystique and, romance and glamour, whatever, like it goes away. And now I'm just talking to another person, another actor, another, and they don't seem so, mythical anymore, right? It's like, oh my gosh, to be able to sit and now I'm talking about acting with this other person who's just an actor just like I am, or a performer or whatever. So I love that that's happening too, to pull some of the celebrity out of it and to just connect with people. I think that's the point, a large part of why I think so many artists do what they do, so I think it's great that that's happening now too. And I don't know, I personally do.
It was great. Thank you for giving some time today to talk, and I think just shout out just at the end here to Christian who helped me connect with you too. Christian.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Christian's great.
And there's
He's
more to
awesome. He's
talk
a
about.
go-getter too, man.
He wants to like start his reel, and I'm gonna like help him, because I like editing myself. I was gonna. He asked me just today, actually. He wants to get a reel started, and if I can help him with that.
Yeah, he's
Great.
guy.
We just scratched the surface of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I skipped over, but in the essence of time, and there are other days, other talks. But
Yes, yeah. I
again,
would love
thank
to
you.
sit down and talk to you, again. And thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun. And I'm a talker, so dude, I'll talk for hours any day. Just wind me up.
Stop.